Welcome to the Trudgery, a zone for true horror stories, disturbing encounters, and twisted tales that were never meant to be heard. Until now.
The following cases are based on a true story. The first time I heard my name echo back at me from a tunnel nobody was supposed to be in, I knew the city had been watching me longer than I thought. My name is TEVIN PURYEAR. I'm from Drew Hill, on the west side of Baltimore. Brick high-rises, wind that never stops, and neighbors who raised you, whether you liked it or not. In 1996, I worked for the Baltimore City Department of Public Works. Solid job, union card, orange vest, the kind of work that keeps the city breathing while nobody looks. I was a good man, still am. I showed up early, stayed late, and kept my head down. That mattered back then, especially for someone like me. Sometimes DPW sent me underground, storm tunnels, old utility corridors, places built before anyone bothered to write things down properly. Down there, the air tasted like rust and damp paper. Your flashlight beam never reached the corners. You learned quick that Baltimore had layers, and some of them never saw daylight. That's where the case started. Everybody called it the Butter Man. The papers didn't know what to call him at first. A city worker found dead near a service hatch. Another guy beaten bad, but alive near an access point off Pratt. There was residue at the scenes. Greasy smears, yellowed fingerprints. The tabloids ran wild. The name stuck because it sounded ridiculous, which made people less afraid. They shouldn't have been. I first heard about him at a penny candy store near Edmondson. I was grabbing lemon heads and jawbreakers for my niece when two old-timers started whispering. Said somebody was greasing door handles near underground access points. Said folks were slipping, falling, getting dragged before they could yell. Urban legend stuff. Baltimore specializes in that. But then I started noticing things. My locker at work smelled wrong, like old oil. My boots stuck to the concrete one morning, soles making that slow peel sound. And underground, I kept seeing marks on the walls, handprints, shiny, like someone rubbed them with something soft. I'd go home, crack a natty bow, shake Old Bay on a chicken box, and tell myself I was tired. That's what a good man does. He rationalizes. What made it complicated was him. I won't say his name. He worked for the city council then. Clean suits, soft hands. We met quietly, stayed quiet. In '96, you didn't mix public service and private truth if you wanted to keep both. We'd sit in his car sometimes, just talking, the radio low, the city moving around us like it didn't know we existed. He worried about me working underground. Said too many people disappeared down there. I told him that was just Baltimore talking. I was wrong. The night everything broke open, DPW sent me with a two-man crew to inspect a drainage tunnel near the inner harbor. Heavy rain earlier. Reports of blockage. I went down first. The tunnel was narrower than others. Walls sweating, and then I smelled it. That same greasy scent, thick enough to coat your throat. My flashlight caught movement, not fast, confident. A man stepped into the beam, tall, dark, handsome in a way that felt deliberate. His skin shined, but not from sweat. He smiled like he'd been waiting.
You city boys never look behind you,
he said. That's when I saw his hands, covered in something pale and slick. Butter-colored. He called himself the Butter Man like it was a job title. Said the tunnels told him things. Said grease made people honest, made them slip back to who they really were. I was wishing this man was just high off of something, but I knew better. I didn't freeze. I backed up slow, boots skidding just enough to scare me. He moved closer, calm, like gravity worked differently for him. What saved me wasn't strength, it was noise. My radio crackled, my crew calling my name. The butter man tilted his head, listening like the tunnel whispered something back. Then he stepped into a side passage and vanished. They caught him weeks later. The streets was talking. City employee turned predator. He'd worked maintenance before DPW, knew their access points, knew who worked late. He used grease to disable, to control. No supernatural explanation, just knowledge and patience. But here's the part they didn't print. When they walked him past me at the station, he looked clean, dry, normal. He smiled and mouthed my name without moving his lips. And later, months later, when the tunnels were sealed and the case closed, I went back underground one last time for a reassignment. On the wall, fresh and shiny, was a handprint. No grease around it, just the shape. I still drink my Natty Boh. Still love 5 wings and French fries, salt, pepper, and ketchup on everything. Some Old Bay on top. Still walk Baltimore like it's home. I stayed a good man. But I learned something in 1996. Some people don't haunt places because they die there. They haunt them because they live there long enough to go insane. Everyone trusted me with their safety, which is why no one noticed when I started taking pieces of it home. My name is Brandon GLAZER. I'm from Towson, Baltimore County, raised on quiet streets with good schools and better excuses. In 2015, I was a cop, tall, athletic, dirty blonde hair, the kind of build people comment on without thinking. Somebody once laughed and said I had a big butt built for sprinting. I laughed too. Cops learn early how to let comments slide. This is a true crime story, even if the paperwork never quite caught up with it. I worked evenings and nights. Towson after dark feels orderly in a way that makes people careless. Lit parking garages, bars closing, students drifting home. I told myself I was protecting them. That's how it starts. You repeat a good word until it bends. The first woman I followed, I didn't think of it as stalking. She'd left a late movie, walking alone, phone glowing. I stayed back, matching her pace, watching reflections in windows instead of her directly, making sure no one else was watching. That's the lie. I said I was a shield. But shields don't choose angles. I had access, databases, addresses, routines. The uniform opens doors you don't deserve. I never touched anyone. That's what I told myself when I couldn't sleep. As if restraint erases intent. It escalated around Comic-Con weekend downtown. Crowds spill north after those events. Costumes in the bars, cheap wigs, plastic swords. I was working security part-time when a woman walked past dressed like Kratos from God of War. Ash pale makeup, red slash across her face. A girl Kratos. That was different. Fun fact, I was Kratos 2 years ago. She laughed loud, fearless. Someone yelled something crude at her, and I stepped in, calm and practiced. She looked me up and down and said, half smiling,
"You ain't never seen one like this, have you?"
I hadn't, and that scared me. After that, I started seeing people twice. Strange patterns. The same woman crossing different streets on different nights. The same car idling too long when I pulled up behind it. Sometimes late, I'd hear my radio whisper my name after I shut it off. That's the hint people like to talk about later. I call it pressure, a job that never lets go. There was a high-profile case then, women reporting being followed by a patrol car, lights never on, just close enough to feel. Internal affairs circled. Supervisors talked about optics. We were told to log everything. I logged nothing. I kept a notebook instead. Times, routes, not names, never names. I told myself that meant I was still a good cop. One night, a woman confronted me in a grocery store parking lot. She turned fast, keys between her fingers, eyes sharp.
You've been behind me 3 times this week,
She said, not yelling, certain. I could have ended it there, apologized, walked away. Instead, I did what authority trains you to do. I controlled the moment, asked questions, made her doubt herself, watched certainty drain from her face. That's the part that still makes my stomach turn. Power doesn't feel like rage. It feels like relief. The case broke when a dash cam caught something no report could explain away. My cruiser idling, engine off in the same place at the same time. Night after night, a pattern the county couldn't ignore. Those said stress. They said leave. They said quiet resignation. I lost a badge without handcuffs. That's how it often goes. I still live in Towson, still run at night. Sometimes I catch my reflection in the window and don't recognize the man. Broad shoulders, that familiar build, a stranger wearing my face. Sometimes, when I stop, I swear the streetlights flicker, like they're counting my steps. Here's the truth that makes this documentary friendly, that gives it the "it could happen" vibe everyone asks for. Nothing supernatural is required, just access, loneliness, and a story you tell yourself often enough that it starts telling you back. The truth is, I am the monster. If you're listening to this and thinking monsters look different, wilder, louder, you're wrong. Sometimes they look like help. Sometimes they wear a uniform. And sometimes they spend the rest of their lives trying not to hear their own name whispered back at them from a dark, ordinary street. I'm so sorry, Mama. I let you down. The night I realized the man asking for my ticket had already been inside my house, I knew Memorial Stadium wasn't the most dangerous place I worked in 1985. My name is VANESSA Hawkins. I'm from Latrobe Homes, east side down the hill. Baltimore, born and raised. In '85, I was a ticket taker at Memorial Stadium, section gates on the 33rd Street side. I worked Orioles games for cash with a laminated badge that fooled nobody into thinking I was safe. I didn't have a real place to live then. I was squatting in a half-burned row house off Harford Road, windows boarded, back door kicked in sometime before Reagan. It had electricity if you knew which wires to dabble with, and running water if you didn't ask questions. Rent was $0 and 0 cents. Neighbors minded their business. That mattered. Memorial Stadium was loud, bright, and orderly. Harford Road, after dark, was not. That summer, the city was on edge. You can look it up. Bodies found in vacant houses, break-ins with nothing taken, men seen watching women get off buses. The news called it isolated incidents. We called it a pattern. At the stadium, I tore tickets while the crowd poured in, chanting for Eddie Murray and Cal Ripken like saints. Families, kids, radios pressed to ears. I watched hands more than faces. Hands tell you who someone is. I remember when I first noticed him. Mid-30s, clean Orioles cap, stonewashed denim jacket even in the heat. He smiled like he practiced it. When I reached for his ticket, he leaned close and said, low, friendly,
"It's Steady Eddie. Let me in."
I laughed because everyone was saying Steady Eddie back then. Eddie Murray could have asked for my social security number and people would have handed it over. I tore the ticket. He didn't move right away, just looked at me like he was checking something off a list. That should have been enough to make me call a supervisor. But in 1985, you didn't make trouble unless trouble made you. Things started happening at the house that same week. Footprints in the dust on the stairs that weren't mine. The back window pushed in farther than before. Once, I came home and my Orioles radio, battery dead for months, was sitting on the kitchen table, tuned to a game recap I hadn't heard yet. I told myself it was kids, or drunks, or my nerves. Then I heard footsteps upstairs while I was brushing my teeth. I grabbed a knife and waited. Nothing. But when I checked the bedroom, someone had written a name in the dust on the dresser. Eddie. At the stadium, he came back. Different gait. Same smile. Same eyes that didn't blink enough. He didn't have a ticket this time.
Lost it,
He said.
You know me.
I told him to step aside. He leaned in close enough that I could smell soap.
You live on Harford Road.
He said. Not a question. That's when the hint of something else crept in. Not ghosts, not visions. Just a sick understanding that someone had been studying me. My shifts, my walk home, the empty house, everyone pretended not to see. I reported him to security. They shrugged. No ticket, no incident. Memorial Stadium was a machine. If you didn't jam it, it kept rolling. The breaking point came after a night game. Orioles won. Crowd buzzing. I got home late and found the front door closed. I never closed it. Inside, the house smelled like cigarette smoke. On the wall, written in charcoal, was a scoreboard. Vanessa, 1, Eddie, 0. I didn't sleep there again. Weeks later, police arrested a man connected to a string of break-ins and assaults tied to stadium workers, ushers, vendors, ticket takers. It was all over the news. He used the games as cover, learned routines, followed people home. He'd written names down, kept souvenirs. They said he liked to be recognized. High-profile case, quiet plea deal. The city moved on. They asked me to identify him. Same stonewashed jacket, same smile. In the interrogation room, he leaned back and said, real calm, like we were old friends.
You should have let me in.
I quit the stadium job after that, moved out of the squat house. Different part of town, different locks. Hello, West Side. People ask if I believe something supernatural was going on in that house on Harford Road. If the radio turning on meant something. If the name in the dust was a warning. Here's what I believe. When a city's hurting, predators don't need to be invisible. They just need to blend in. Wear the right cap, say the right name, and wait for you to assume they belong. And if you were in Baltimore in 1985, you know exactly how easy that was. They warned us that some houses on the Dundalk route didn't want to be found, but no one warned me what would happen if I found one anyway. I was a meter reader in Dundalk in the mid-90s, back when the job still meant knocking on doors and cutting through alleys that never saw daylight. My name is Gary Pearson, and I covered the neighborhoods just outside Baltimore. Row homes packed tight, chain link fences sagging, dogs barking like they were paid to hate you. This is based on what happened to me, not a story I heard. I wish it wasn't. Back then we worked alone. No GPS, no cell phones. You carried a clipboard, a flashlight, and a healthy sense of when to leave. Most days were boring. Some days were tense. One day changed everything. It was late October. Gray sky, cold enough to make your breath visible. I was assigned a stretch near the old industrial lots, places half the city forgot. Houses backed up against wooded strips and drainage ditches, the kind of areas where people didn't want visitors and didn't ask questions. About halfway through the block, I noticed one house hadn't been read in months. Notes in the margin said, no answer, gate locked, access unclear. The gate was open that day. That should have been my first warning. The yard was long and narrow, overgrown grass brushing to my knees. The house sat low, windows dark, siding stained from years of rain. No Doug, no car, just quiet. I remember thinking how the air felt thicker there, like sound didn't travel right. The meter was around back. As I walked around the back way, I heard movement inside. Slow footsteps, someone pacing. I called out, meter man, like I usually do. The Footsteps stopped. I reached the meter and knelt down. That's when I smelled something sour and metallic, like rust and old meat. I took the reading fast, scribbled it down, and stood up. That's when the door behind me opened. He was tall, broad, wearing Timberland boots and a heavy jacket, even though it wasn't that cold. His face was pale, eyes sunken, like he hadn't slept right in years. He smiled, but it didn't reach anywhere near his eyes.
You the meter man?
He asked. I nodded and said I was just finishing up. He stepped closer, too close. I remember noticing his hands big, dirty, with a fresh scrape across the knuckles.
Funny thing,
He said.
they keep sending you boys out here.
I took a step back. I'll be out of your way. That's when he looked down at my clipboard. Then he said, very casually,
How you want to curry it?
I didn't understand. Curry? What? He tilted his head toward the side alley.
You can curry it under your arm or drag it. Depends how strong you are.
My stomach dropped. Every instinct I had started screaming. I told him I had other houses to get to. He laughed. Short, sharp, like he was surprised I'd said something funny.
No rush,
He said.
Nobody comes back here.
He took another step toward me, blocking the path back to the gate. That's when I heard something, a sound from behind the trap door, leading to the basement. Not an animal, not wind, a muffled thump, like something heavy hitting wood. His smile vanished.
Stay here.
He said, suddenly irritated. I didn't wait to hear more. I ran. I booked it through the yard, crashed through the open gate, down the alley, and didn't stop until I hit the street. I didn't look back. I didn't care if it made me look crazy. I flagged down the first car I saw and asked them to call the police. When officers arrived, I tried to explain. They went to the house. The man was gone. The back of the house, though, that was real. They inspected the trapdoor entrance. Inside were tools, rope, plastic sheeting, and evidence I won't describe in detail because I still see enough of it when I close my eyes. What I will say is this. The police later told me the address had been connected to multiple missing persons over the years. Drifters, runaways, people no one came looking for. The man was never caught. A week later, my supervisor quietly removed that house from the route list. No explanation, just gone like it never existed. I quit not long after. To this day, when I hear footsteps behind me or someone stands too close, I'm back in that yard in Dundalk, cold air in my lungs, realizing how close I came to not leaving at all. And every now and then, the words come back, clear as if he's standing right behind me again. How you want to curry it? The first time I realized someone was watching me clean teeth, after hours, I knew it wasn't a ghost, because ghosts don't clock in. My name is Rachel Davis. I'm from Canton on the east side of Baltimore, the kind of place where you learn early how to read a room and trust your gut. In the aughts, the early 2000s, I worked as a dental hygienist at the Baltimore area medical school clinic. It was supposed to be a stable job. Benefits, predictable. Fluorescent lights and suction hoses and students who didn't floss. The clinic served everyone. Students, faculty, patients from the city. Because of that, we ran late hours. I often worked evenings, sometimes alone, especially during exam weeks, when no one wanted to talk to another human unless absolutely necessary. That's when he started showing up. At first, it was just little things, instruments slightly out of place after sterilization. The light above operatory 4 angled lower than I left it. Charts returned to my tray that I knew I hadn't touched yet. I blamed fatigue. In Canton, if you assume someone's messing with you, you better be right. The antagonist, though I didn't know yet that he was, introduced himself as Dr. Alan Mercer. He wasn't faculty. He wasn't a student. He said he was research adjacent, which in a medical school can mean almost anything. He wore an old ID badge on a fraying lanyard and knew just enough jargon to sound legitimate. Everyone assumed someone else had cleared him. That's the dangerous part. Institutions shouldn't run on assumptions. Mercer had a habit of standing too close, watching my hands while I worked, asking questions that weren't inappropriate enough to report, but weren't normal either.
How long before a patient realizes something's wrong? Do people notice pain more when they're stressed? Ever hear the suction talk back?
I laughed that one off. He smiled and said, "Real casual."
Psych a bore.
I didn't know what he meant. Neither did Google back then. Things escalated in 2007. Patients started complaining about discomfort they couldn't explain, not pain exactly. Pressure, confusion, time gaps. One patient swore someone whispered to her during her procedure, even though I was alone with her the entire appointment. Administration chalked it up to anxiety. The city sends anxious people. That's not news. One night I stayed late finishing charts. The clinic was empty except for Mercer. I didn't hear him come in. I just looked up and there he was, sitting in a chair, like he belonged to it. He told me he was documenting behavioral responses in controlled medical environments. He said
Dentists and hygienists had unique access to people. Vulnerable, distracted, compliant.
That word stuck with me, compliant. I started paying attention. Mercer always knew the schedule. He knew when I'd be alone. He knew which operatories had blind spots from the hallway cameras. That's not supernatural. That's planning. The hint of something else came from the audio. One of the students complained the system picked up voices on a training recording. IT blamed feedback. But when I listened, late one night, I heard breathing layered under the machine noise. Not words, just breath. Too steady to be mechanical. Then Mercer slipped up. He referenced a patient by name, someone I treated alone, someone whose chart was never digitized. I reported him the next morning. Administration said there was no Dr. Alan Mercer affiliated with the school. Facilities said no one by that name had badge access. Security pulled footage. Some cameras glitched. Others showed him clearly, walking in behind staff, tailgating through locked doors. He'd been there for months. The final night, I went back to the clinic with campus police. Operatory 4 was locked from the inside. They forced it open. Inside was recording equipment, audio mics hidden near the suction line, detailed notes, timelines, psychological profiles. Mercer wasn't a ghost. He was worse. He was real, meticulous, and convinced he was invisible. He was never charged. That's the part people don't like in documentaries. He disappeared before arrest. The school settled quietly with patience. The clinic changed protocols, badges, cameras, training. They reassigned me. I eventually quit. Sometimes people ask if I think something supernatural was involved, about the voices, the way the machines sounded alive. Here's what I know. When you give someone access, authority, and silence, they don't need to be a monster. They just need time. And sometimes, late at night, when I hear a vacuum change pitch, I still think of Mercer leaning in and smiling, like he knew a secret the rest of us were too polite to name. Psychobore. If you worked in a hospital in Baltimore in the early 2000s, you already know. The scariest stories don't need ghosts. They just need gaps in oversight and someone willing to stand in them. If you know, you know. If you enjoyed the video, press that like button and consider subscribing to the channel. Stay tuned for more great stories.